Hello everyone, my name is Jess, and today we are going to be talking about my big pile of shame, which is all of the series that I'm currently in the middle of. So, yes, I am in the middle of 15 series. Now, these series are ones that I want to prioritize. So I am actually in the middle of more, but right now I've like soft DNF'd or like fully DNF'd other series that I'm like technically in the middle of, but I just either don't want to continue on with it or don't want to continue on in the near future. So these series I either want to make progress on or finish by like the end of next year, this year. Just some sort of progress needs to be made because I need to stop picking up series when I'm still in the middle of 15 of them. I hope that I'm not the only one that struggles with this, but I'm going to be separating these into like genre categories. So the first genre is fantasy, and this book, not on purpose, is I think the oldest series that I have on my shelf that's unfinished, and that is The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. I read this first one, I don't even know when I read it, but you can tell how old it is because this was my old family dog when he was a puppy. So this is around 2006, I believe, era, where he chewed the ends because he was a puppy and they just chew everything. So yes, I need to complete the inheritance cycle. And I've heard through the grapevine that this is going to be made into a TV series. I don't know if that's correct or not, but apparently it will redeem itself from the movie, even though I actually quite liked the movie. But this follows a world where pretty much he's like not a dark lord, but he's like the king and he's not a nice person. And he is in search of a dragon egg that was stolen from him. It never hatched. And apparently, like the dragon eggs in this world only hatch when they sense a rider and a strong companion. So, lo and behold, a farm boy stumbles upon this stolen egg and it hatches for him. And that is where our story goes. So there's a lot of like learning to be a dragon rider, learning about the language of dragons, and the world was really good. It kind of gave me like Lord of the Rings-esque, but not really, but also kind of not as good as obviously Lord of the Rings, but it did give that feel to it. It was a little slow, a little dry in the writing, but this is a YA, so it's super easy to read. I did attempt to start Eldest, but I attempted to do it via audiobook, and the narration of the dragon is terrible. Like I couldn't do it. So I will be reading this physically. So this is one that I do want to have completed by the end of this year. At least this, I want to have the second book completed by the end of this year. The other books are also chonkers, so I will just set this one as my goal. The next series is very, very popular, and it is in the world of Brandon Sanderson, and that is the Stormlight Archive. I read this, I don't even know when I read this, but I loved the world. I'm not even going to attempt to explain this world because it is very much a story that you learn as the characters learn. So that's kind of nice. Like you feel like you're not getting caught up on anything. It's very much like you feel like you're a team with the characters because you are learning as they're learning. And the world is very expansive. The magic is really interesting. It's very slow to learn about though, because yeah, I feel like I just dipped my toes in to the magic system in this book. And I am currently 752 pages into Words of Radiance. I stopped this in the middle of April because the audiobook got returned and I was doing an immersive read and annotate experience with this book, which I highly, highly recommend. The audiobooks are phenomenal with this series. This book really gets more into the magic and it's super interesting and I'm very, very excited to see how this book ends. I definitely want to have this finished by the end of August, fingers crossed, or end of September. I would say that's a good goal. End of September, that's more achievable. And then I want to have Oathbringer done by the end of the year. So I want it to be like a fall, early winter read. And then that way I only have The Rhythm of War and the fifth book that I'm pretty sure closes out the first installment of the Stormlight Archive. And I think it's called Wind in Truth or Winds in Truth. So I want to read those two next year. The next series is The Burning by Evan Winter. The first one being The Rage of Dragons. I read, I believe, last year, and I gave it a 3-star. It wasn't an all-time favorite by any means, but I heard the second book is really, really good. And I just want more character development, and I really The one thing I did really like in this book was the found family aspect. Now, you were following the character, I believe, yeah, his name is Tao, and he is very much a revenge plot because something really bad happens to him at the beginning of the book, and he is just hell-bent on taking revenge on something that happened to him. So it definitely has a hierarchy in it, and needs to work his way up through training and becoming a warrior. And then there's also kind of like, I don't know if anyone else got this, but I was picturing like a Stranger Things, like the upside down kind of world in this book. So I'm excited to learn more about that. There's also not that many dragons in here. Like, just so you know, going in, I did read this thinking there was gonna be lots of dragons, and there's definitely not. The next two books are in the sci-fi fantasy realm. They're kind of a blend of both. So that's why I kind of created their own genre. But I read Foundry Side last year by Robert Jackson Bennett. Obsessed. Like, this book was so good. So the Founders trilogy follows Sansia, who is a thief, super good one. So she gets hired for this huge job to steal something. And so there's a lot of heist stuff, but she steals something, she doesn't really know what she's stolen, and everyone is after it. In this world, the magic system is scribing, so it has like a sentience kind of ability, so you can bring objects to life and give them a purpose. And it's really cool how it's handled and kind of combined with like the heists and running away and protecting yourself, and it's just super good. I highly recommend it. I haven't heard the best things about continuing on this series, but I am hoping that I have a different perspective. So I am definitely wanting to read the second one. I believe it's called Shorefall, in fall this year. So I will be continuing on this series this year. The next one being the Broken Earth trilogy. The first one is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I loved this world. Mind you, it took me a bit to get into it. It took me a bit to understand what was going on because there's a lot of puzzle pieces just laid out for you, and it does take a while for you to put them all together. Now, I loved that the characters kind of all started off separately, and then at the end you kind of see how their stories intertwine. I love when books do that. The magic system in here is more so around seismic events, so like earthquakes, volcano eruptions, tsunamis, that kind of thing. And each year, I believe, or each decade or something, a seismic event occurs, and they have these wielders in this world that can wield certain magic and can kind of read the earth. Don't quote me on that. I read this a really long time ago. It was really good. I definitely need a refresher before I continue on with the Obelisk Gate. But I do have the Obelisk Gate coming up as an audiobook loan soon because I loved immersively reading this. So I do need to go through my tabs and do a refresher of the 5th season before I dip my toes into Obelisk Gate. The next books I'm going to be talking about are in the Romantasy category. A series that I started this year and absolutely loved. The first book was the Everseas series, and that is the first one being The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. This book follows kind of two realms. There's a land realm and a sea realm, and the Ever King, his name is Eric, steals the princess of the land Fae, and like with the purpose of never returning her, and kind of like all out war. He does it as a revenge thing. And so it does start off, it has like an enemies to lovers, but very quickly turns into intrigue, and there's a lot of angst in it. The world is really cool. The magic, each person has a different ability, whether that's like the land fae or sea fae. And it doesn't really feel like a fae book to me. I don't know. It just feels like people with abilities. And I did definitely want more like sea-esque aspect, like pirate themed, but alas, I didn't get that. But the characters were good. The plot was super well paced and very engaging, lots of action. Highly recommend this one. The Ever Queen was not so great, but the third book follows a different character who I really liked. He was very humorous in this book and the second book. So I'm very excited to follow his storyline. However, if I don't like The Mist Thief, then I'm probably going to be DNFing this series. I have heard really good things about the prequel series to this. The prequel series is more like Land Fae, but like the parents' story. I also, at the end of last year, this book was all the rage, and so I picked it up and read it, and it was so good. It's Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, and this is the Regency Fairies series. I actually haven't heard of anyone reading the rest of this series. So if you have, let me know if it's worth it to continue on. But this one follows a girl named Theodora, and she gets half of her soul stolen by a fairy. This leads her to have no filter, have a little bit of like social quirks, and it's just, she's so cute, and it's like made me laugh a few times. And she encounters this character named Elias Wilder, who is a handsome, peculiar, and utterly ill-mannered Lord Sorcerer. But yeah, so he's has ill manners. She has no filter, and so it's like the best combo, and their banter was just really good. And it's such a short, quick read. I would highly recommend it. So yes, I will be continuing on in the Regency Fairies to see how the following books are. I don't know if they're more companions, following different characters, or what, but yes, this one would recommend. The next Romantasy series is probably the most long-standing Romantasy series that I have on my shelf, and that is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I loved this first book. It really was perfect escapism and got me out of a reading slump. Was just such a fun time. And you're following a girl named Poppy, who is the maiden. No one is allowed to touch her. Limited people are allowed to talk to her. She's not allowed to be fully seen. And she has this destiny that she does not want to live. And she ends up getting a bodyguard named Hawk, and that is the male romantic interest. And there's just twists and turns from there. That's all I'm gonna say. This book is definitely really long. I don't think it needed to be that long, but it was really good. However, I didn't love A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I did read the second one right after reading the first one, and I didn't love it. It was just a totally different setting, which was not a problem, but it was just very slow. And then I tried going right into A Crown of Gilded Bones, that one right there, and I just could not get into it. Even though the second book ended off on a cliffhanger and the third one picked up right off, I just couldn't get into it, and I don't know why, but I feel like that third one is going to be like a make or break for the series for me, because I think there's one more. I think it's The War of Two Queens or something like that. That's the last book. But then I heard that she has a prequel series or something like that, and you have to read the first book before continuing on in this series, which I hate that. It's like when TV series have crossover episodes with other TV series in the same city. And I'm like, I just want to stick with this one series that I'm watching. Why do I have to watch one episode from a TV series I just don't even care about to know what's going on? So that's how I feel about this book. I don't know if that's correct, but that's what I heard a few booktubers talking about. So it kind of makes me a little averted to this series. But I will read the third one, and that one will be the deciding factor of whether I continue on in the Blood and Ash series. The next series is one that I'm pretty sure everyone and their mother has read, except for me, and I just started it this year. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, pre 2-year hiatus, I said that I would never read Sarah J. Maas, ever. I don't know why, I just wasn't interested. However, one of my friends here in town said that ACOTAR has similar vibes to The Vampire Diaries, and I love The Vampire Diaries. I've watched it so many times. I am a huge Damon fan. And so she's like, you need to read this series. If you like Vampire Diaries, you'll probably like this series. Now, I read the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I give it 3 stars because I didn't like the female character, Feyre. Tamlin, super boring, total stuffin'. And then we only got a little piece of Rhysand. I was intrigued, not hooked, but I will be giving the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, a shot, because I heard that follows more like the Daemon or the Rhysand perspective. So I will be giving that one a shot. If I like it, I will continue on the series. The next series is a recent obsession, and that is the Legends of Thesmar series by Helen Scher. This is the first book, Blood and Steel. I devoured this book last month. I was obsessed with it. Everything was great about it. The characters, the plot, the world, so cool. You're following this world where there's a prophecy where if a woman wields a blade, there is the potential to bring down the veil, which can bring upon the darkness of all over the realms. And so women are no longer allowed to be warriors. They are not allowed to touch a blade. And enter our character, Thea. All she's wanted to be is a warrior, and the top warrior is called a warsword, but you have to be able to wield a blade. And so she gets caught wielding her own blade by none other than Wilder Hawthorne, who is the main character interest, and he is kind of not very nice in the first part of the book, but he definitely grows on you I think in this series, he's probably going to be my favorite because of his character arc. It's very slow. You only get bits and pieces. This one mainly follows Thea because it's following just her journey of becoming a warrior or doing lots of training. So there's a training school in this. There's a found family aspect. The slow burn and the angst in this is so good. Highly recommend this series. The writing was also fantastic. I didn't love a few twists at the end, but that's okay. I'm hoping that it gets better throughout the series, and I hope that I warm to some of the twists. The next category is science fiction, and that first one being the Expanse series. I read this one. This is actually, I think, the first book that I read this year, and it is also the most confusing book that I read this year. I finished this book. First of all, I read it via audio. I don't think that was a good idea. I will be probably immersively reading the second book. I think it's called Caliban's War. But I finished this book and was like, what just happened? So I watched the TV show, and the first season follows this book to a T. They did such a good job and gave me such a bit better understanding of what was going on, what the world looked like, because I was also having a harder time visualizing certain things. So this one follows Detective Miller and Jim Holden, who is an XO, and there is a ship that has disappeared that has like a really important secret on it, but no one knows where this ship is. It just disappeared. They thought it was destroyed. They thought there was a big attack on it, which now there's like theories of a war starting because who attacked this ship. And there's also like a plot to extinguish, not a race, but like certain planets. Everything relies on finding out what happened to the ship and what is on the ship because there's something suspicious going on. This is I think the first full space opera that I've ever read. So I think that's why it maybe was hard to picture for me. It's not that the author did a bad job at all. It's just that I'm not experienced in this kind of world. So I will be continuing on this series. The TV show, if you found this book confusing, watch the first season of the TV show because it does a really good job. But yes, I will be continuing on this series. The next sci-fi series is the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. I read the first book, I think last year, and I really liked it. It was super fun, easy, very character-driven sci-fi, and it was also set in space. It was just super easy, and I loved it. There was a lot of character diversity and a lot of representation. Would highly recommend. The next ones are just graphic novels. So the first one being the Montrist graphic novels, and I think I've read the first 2 volumes of it. The artwork is really, really good. I honestly can't remember what this is about, so I'm probably gonna have to reread the first 2 and then continue on. It's just really dark and super good. The artwork, phenomenal. The next graphic novel series is Lore Olympus. I read the first book of the series. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. I loved the artwork. It's like pink and blues. I really want to continue on because I think when I started this series, only the first book was published. So I had to wait for the second volume, and then I just stopped reading. I think that's when I hit my reading slump. So I probably need to reread the first one like I do Monstrous, but this one, highly recommend. Like this graphic novel series is really good. The last series that I'm going to talk about is the Heartstopper series. This one, I think everyone loves. Like, I don't think you could say a single bad thing about this series. It's super cute, very well written. The artwork is really cute, and it's just a little bit PTSD because you get like the bullying going on in like a high school setting, and it's just like, yeah, it's super relatable sometimes and great LGBTQ rep, and it's just a super cute story. So I will be continuing on. I'm going on to the third one. But those are all the series that I am in the middle of. It's a lot, I know. I hope that I'm not the only one that has a problem with finishing series. I'm thinking about dedicating reading vlogs to finishing series. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. Let me know in the comments down below what series you are prioritizing this year, or let me know how many series you're currently in the middle of. That would probably make me feel better and feel like I'm not alone in the problematic world of not finishing series. If you made it to the end of this video, please leave a alien emoji. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.